welcome to This Week Online, the 7th ever episode of This Week Online. And yes, I did get the number correct this week.
Wow.
And I did it all by myself.
Jacob knows how to count, guys.
Today, since we've been a bunch of busy boys during the week, we only have a couple of topics for news, and then we're going to try something a bit different closer to the end, where we're going to have a bit of a discussion about a topic that Prad wishes to talk about.
See, Jacob, the thing you have to do there is that you don't want to talk badly about yourself. So what you got to say is that other people haven't been busy, so there's nothing for us to talk about.
Because
it's they haven't been doing anything.
It's been a slow news week. It's not that I've been slow.
So put the blame somewhere else.
Okay, so today we're talking about Microsoft acquiring Bethesda and what that means for RPG nerds. We're going to be talking about how Microsoft 365 took a massive dump a couple of days ago and all of their services went down. My deepest sympathies, because I know what that's like when you're working from home. And Google is to pay, or has said that they will be paying $1 billion to publishers globally, and we'll get more into that when we get around to it. But first of all, you've been watching anything, listened to anything?
It's mainly been on YouTube. Two things that I've been following. One is that I'm actually trying to get myself into a certain type of D&D campaign, and as a result, I've found myself watching a lot of D&D campaigns. One in particular, which features a lot of personalities I enjoy, is the Broken Bonds campaign that's been being run by someone named Arcadum. He's done a fantastic job where he had at some point like an 8-minute speech with like music customized to reach its climax at the perfect moment. Customized tokens. He's got so much effort put into it, and even if like you aren't a fan of D&D, just appreciating like how much he's put, because what he's planning is that he's bringing together about I don't know, I think it's like 6 other campaigns, so 7 campaigns in total, to come together for a final massive moment in the campaign.
Yeah,
which is just amazing that he's able to coordinate that. So it's just a lot of fun to follow, and it like watching that much D&D helps you understand exactly how things work.
Yeah.
So it's just fun to watch. And the other thing is that the World's group stage has kicked off. Play-ins was last week, and group stage right now. So really hoping for my guys TSM to do well, but not a great first day.
And this is League of Legends.
This is League of Legends. Sorry, should make that clear. League of Legends Worlds group stage. Lot of stuff happened. A lot of blowouts, a lot of stomps, and a couple of close games as well. So it was fun to watch.
Nice.
Yeah. What about you, Jacob?
So actually, this morning, a channel I quite like, I Did a Thing, posted up a new video about him making a hot tub for birds. So I watched that. You know what? I really enjoyed it. I watched it. Let me have a look. I want to say a almost 20-minute video about a man in Sydney making a hot tub for birds in his backyard. And it didn't really go as he wanted it to. So it's been a good week content-wise.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the I don't know. You told me we won't be negative about ourselves.
Yeah, it's other people's fault.
Yeah, it's other people's fault. But let's jump into our news topics. So recently, or in the past couple of days, it's been announced that Microsoft has bought Bethesda.
Well, to be clear, they bought ZeniMax Media, which includes Bethesda, but the main part of that is obviously Bethesda.
But people don't care about ZeniMax; they're just the publishers. So this is potentially enormous news for those who are in the PlayStation camp, because it would seem, now we're not sure, obviously, because the deal's just been done. But the main thing that people are worried about is that what about Elder Scrolls?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it would be I think it's very clear that this is going to be it's going to be exclusive now. We've seen that PlayStation itself has, probably in the last 5 years or so, all of the major titles have been, on PlayStation, whether you want to talk about Red Dead Redemption or Spider-Man, God of War, those games were massive. If you want to look at the numbers, it's really impressive. And they've all been for the PlayStation. So I guess this is just like Microsoft trying to say, hey, we're in the race as well. We can get a massive contender for Game of the Year on our side. Game of the decade, really.
Potentially.
And I mean, it's really impressive that I think Bethesda in particular, because it's Skyrim or Elder Scrolls that they've gotten. Because one thing with Skyrim is that compared to other games, whether you want even Halo, which was at least supposed to be, you're in a bunch of maps, you kill a bunch of aliens, you go around and you're super strong, has now become fairly story based. And so it's a bit more of a niche game, I would say, even though it's supposed to be just a bunch of beautiful maps. You go around, you shoot aliens with, really high paced gameplay. It's not really that anymore, where, obviously the pace is still there and all that, but there's such a heavy focus on the story that if you just jump in and play Halo 5 or Halo Infinite when it comes out, you're not going to really understand where you are and how you got here.
Yeah, there's a massive extended lore as well, outside of the games.
Oh yeah.
I think it might have been The Verge actually did a video where they got one of their employees sat down and read every piece of external lore to the Halo franchise, the books and the comics and stuff. And it was a big undertaking.
There's books, there's comics, and the even more difficult part to me, I think, is that Halo has had a bunch of small pieces of information that they hide in other pieces of information released for a while, whether it's in the terminals within the games or whether it's within, and a lot of news right now comes through toys that are released for Halo. So there's a lot. Obviously that doesn't count too much towards the lore, but it's just it's a massive universe. And the same with games even to some extent God of War, I would say. But in I wanted to talk specifically about the exclusives for Xbox. So the biggest one I can talk about is obviously Halo, because Skyrim, if you played that, I was never into the lore of Elder Scrolls. I had not played Oblivion or Morrowind or Daggerfall or any of the other ones that had come before that. And I jumped right into Skyrim, and it was it's a game that you don't need to know what's going on.
No,
you don't.
No, you do get if you read the books in the game, you do get the sense of oh, there is so much going on here. And I remember one time when I was younger, I was trying to look into it. I went, no, this is just too much. I'm just going to give up.
There's definitely a lot of lore there, and they've built quite the universe, quite the timeline as well. But you don't need to know all of it. I knew
it's not necessary.
It's 100% not necessary. You don't. Obviously, certain characters that pop up may have more meaning when you do know the lore, but it's not like it's not like their presence there doesn't make sense or something if you don't know the lore. So it's really impressive to me, and because it's this game in particular where anyone can get into it, and it's a game that, I mean, I looked around and I could not find a game. Obviously, with the re-releases, it makes sense, but I could not find a game that had more sales than Skyrim over the last 10 years.
No, but as we were talking about before, that it is helped quite a lot. The fact that there's been multiple different versions on every console that's been released since Skyrim's release.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. This is also Bethesda sort of looking where their money is coming from, because of the sales, at least in the initial sales, I think it was like 60% was from Xbox 360, whereas only like I think it was 25% from PlayStation and then 15% from PC. So like it was pretty like, you know, you look where the money is. Our Xbox players were playing this game. Let's just go where they are.
Yeah, I just had a thought. Do you think that includes the HD remaster that came out a couple of years ago?
As in for the 60 of the percentage of players from each console?
Or just the sales figures in general?
I honestly cannot understand the results. Like they've thrown out 30 million, but they haven't really explained where that number comes from.
Yeah, because I wonder if that would be different if you took the HD remaster as its own beast, right? Or if they included it within the overall total of sales for Skyrim. I mean, let's be fair, the HD remaster was pretty much just a texture pack.
And that's the other thing, which is, and I get you could get more into the specifics of like the issues with Skyrim if you talk about that and like what Bethesda's game plan is when they release games. But Skyrim, when it was released, was an incomplete game.
Yes.
And so leaving the opportunity up for players to create mods for the game is obviously the best thing that they could have done.
Yeah.
Because with things like texture packs and gameplay changes and all of that, players have done so much for the game.
Yeah, it's actually incredible. And it's still a massive community centered around the game that's like going on a decade old.
Like even Oldrim, as it's called now, like there's the so there's essentially considered 3 versions of Skyrim at this point.
Yeah.
Oldrim, Legendary Edition, and then Skyrim Special Edition, which includes everything. And even there's Oldrim is like the vanilla version from ages ago, where you would have there was no Legendary Edition. It was when you had to buy each of the DLCs as they came out.
Yeah.
That still has mods coming for it. That's insane to me.
Yeah.
And
the fact that it's that old.
Yeah. And obviously Special Edition, I don't know if Special Edition has overtaken it. I was very active in modding until about maybe March this year. So I haven't checked the numbers since then. But like they basically have half the game is made up by mods. At this point for me, after I've played the game several times without mods and finished the campaign and done quite a few quests without it, whenever I start the game now, if I reinstall it new, I have to have a minimum of like 50 mods just to have the game at a base level that I can now play it and enjoy it. But anyway, that's diving down the rabbit hole of mods. But no, this is pretty massive. Just that they've gotten Skyrim again. Like it's not a game that's particularly lore based, but there is massive story within the game, which is a lot of fun to play through.
Yeah. The one thing I was thinking though is, do you remember when they released the Crash trilogy on PlayStation?
Oh yeah. The remaster.
And that was an exclusive.
Yeah.
Until it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So who owned, as in the company that created Crash?
Naughty Dog.
Naughty Dog, really?
Yeah. Naughty Dog wasn't originally known for like those big cinematic masterpieces and that one big cinematic fail as well. They were platformers.
Really? That's
like Crash was their breakthrough. Yeah.
That's really interesting. Because like, especially because that one of those massive artistic games that they released was one of the biggest exclusives this year.
Yeah. And also one of the biggest fails.
Well, I will disagree with you on that personally.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't played it, right? But like the sentiment online would seem that people mostly didn't like it.
Do you want to talk about that?
Nah, not really. I just think it's a bunch of people salty because one of the main characters from the last game was killed, and
Okay. We'll move on because again, that's another rabbit hole that we'll dive down me talking too much about it anyway. But no, like there's quite a few massive titles that have come with the acquisition, like Skyrim, and we haven't mentioned Fallout, Doom, Quake, Wolfenstein, and Dishonored.
Yeah.
So like again, Fallout, even Fallout 4, which like you were saying was a game that a lot of people bought and then didn't like very soon.
Yeah, I before my PC is in its current state, I actually originally built a computer to play Fallout 4. That's how excited I was because I love Fallout 3, I love Fallout New Vegas, and I'm like, surefire, right? It looked like everything looked great leading up to the game, and I got it, and it was a terrible buggy chuggy mess. It was shocking. Like I had pretty good hardware for the time, like nothing top tier, but should have been enough to run the game, no issues. And I was getting like on the first day, I was getting like 20 frames per second in certain areas.
Wow.
Yeah, it was shocking. I played it a little bit later because I just started to play around with the sediment creation a bit more, and they fixed it dramatically. But I don't care anymore because it really wasn't as good as a game as it should have been.
This is both a Microsoft issue and a Bethesda issue. Is that, like I said, they released a lot of incomplete games. Halo 5 as well was like it was supposed to be massive. And look, apparently the numbers have been estimated to be around 10 million sales, which is still solid, but like
still pretty good.
Compared to obviously their bigger ones, Halo 2 and Halo 3, not as much. But it was an incomplete game. They didn't release a lot of the game until later, almost as DLC, and those kinds of parts of the game had to be there on release. Like it's like No Man's Sky, even, where it was released, it was incomplete, it wasn't what they said it would be, and then later on now it's massively fixed, and it's obviously regaining a little bit of popularity. But we've seen with Fallout 4, even like a game that's fixed like 5 years after release is just not going to increase. It's since release, it's had like very soon after its release, it had 13 million sales.
Yeah,
and it's basically stagnated since that.
Yeah,
for a game that was fixed so
Fallout
later.
76 as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah, 76. Look, that was a massive failure, and you I guess you have to hope to some extent that Bethesda is going to put a bit more effort into making a complete game upon release.
Yeah.
Because again, like the DLCs, like Hearthstone and Dawnguard and Dragonborn, those are good story pieces, but it didn't fix the gameplay issues, the fundamental issues in the game.
Yeah.
That were like that cannot be in a game on release.
No. Yeah. It's such a shame as well with Halo 5. Now I haven't actually played it and I haven't seen much about it, but growing up, Halo always seemed like such a well-polished like piece of software. Like it was just like even the first Halo, I remember playing it at somebody else's house in the original Xbox. When that was still the newest thing around, and it just seems so just done. Like it was perfect. And then I've never been able to play Halo 2. Might get there eventually, but I remember Halo 3. That just seems so polished, like on the Xbox 360 back in the day.
Well, I think the major thing there is that there was, like, I guess before the internet was so massive, you had to create a perfect game. There wasn't really the opportunity for patching and fixing a game after release because everything was like, you had to buy the CD, which means that like if there was a planned update later on, it's pretty hard to implement that.
Yeah, that's true. And what's interesting though, talking about that, is I remember sometimes you would buy a game for the 360 because we never really had any good internet.
Yeah.
Like we've had rubbish internet for ages. And we definitely didn't have a broadband plan that was filled with gigabytes for us to use, right? And what was interesting is occasionally you would buy a game and then the Xbox would update off of that game and then you would end up with the newer UI.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know how they ever did that unless they put the code into the game because
Huh.
our Xbox was very rarely connected to the internet.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So I don't know how they did that.
I guess it might be. Yeah. That's.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really weird. I remember when we bought Prototype, the first one, we stuck that into the thing, and then I was like, "Oh, I got to do an update." I'm like, all right, did an update, and then we had the new UI.
Maybe it's
Very
like
weird.
forced to update because the game wouldn't run otherwise or something. I don't know.
But it wasn't connected to the internet.
Yeah.
Like, because the original 360 didn't have Wi-Fi inbuilt. So you
Huh.
had to have an Ethernet cable or the Wi-Fi adapter. And neither was connected to the Xbox at the time. Yeah, really weird. Anyway, we're really off topic.
Now that's yeah.
Yeah.
Like yeah, it's just that like yeah, Halo 1, Halo 2 even, and again, Halo 3 was like at the moment it was released, it was massive.
Yeah.
Because it was like the perfect response to Halo 2 where such a game was expected.
Yeah.
And then since then, Halo 4, Halo Reach, but Halo 4 was not a bad game. I'll say that. Halo Reach was a perfect game in my opinion.
Yeah.
But Halo 5 was a game that was released and then it felt like they were like, it's okay if we release an incomplete game. It's okay because we can just go back and do it again.
Yeah. I think that's a growing thing in the developer space.
Well,
don't worry, we can patch it.
I don't feel that way because again, you've seen with the Sony exclusive, with the PS4 exclusives, like Spider-Man, I did not see any patches for that afterwards, except for like skin updates. Like the gameplay was not changed whatsoever. There weren't many bug fixes. Same with God of War, Red Dead Redemption 2, like those, and even The Last of Us 2 were released to be complete games when they were released. Whereas something like Halo, which should be a complete game, it should be like, okay, there's this feature and then which is the story and it's completely there. And then there's this feature, which is a separate part of the gameplay, which is also there.
Yeah.
They should be simple. They should be ready to be played upon release. But both Skyrim and Halo 5, both of those incomplete games. So
yeah.
I guess you have to wonder if the two poor workers in your group assignment have just gotten together to produce something even worse.
I don't know. It's I just hope that like it gets better because I still think like those are some good examples of games that were actually finished products when they hit shelves or rather hit servers to be distributed to your computer. But like even games like my favorite game probably ever, The Witcher 3, like playing the first version of that and then playing like now what I would consider the finished game, it's a wildly different experience just for the simple fact of like it now runs better. That's it. Like, now I'm getting like a solid, I don't know, when I played it a while ago, I was getting like a solid 50 frames. Before I was getting like 25 to 30.
Yeah, no, like again, that's also a thing in Skyrim where like for somehow people were able to create higher texture grass mods and yet your game would run better.
Yeah. That's the thing, isn't it? You do not want the community to fix your game.
Exactly. That's a major fix. Like for the game to run better on someone else's setup.
And for it to look better as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it was like, okay, they're taking away textures and then it works better, sure, maybe you can get around saying, oh, but we wanted to have the maximum environmental effect. But for a game, for someone to create a change to your game and then make it run that, look, I'm just worried that you've paired two companies who seem to have a history of releasing games that don't run completely upon release.
Yeah. I would even say that extends into software. Microsoft 365. So
beautiful segue.
Thank you. So a couple of days ago, Microsoft 365 went down and people were stranded. And it was all because Microsoft says, at least in a tweet that they made, was because of an update. Which, if you're a Windows 10 user, shouldn't come as much as a surprise. Much of a surprise. Now, I used to always be on the side of Windows 10 is a good product if you turn most of the spying stuff off, right? But I've now come to the point where I've upgraded my computer a little bit, and so much of what used to work no longer does work.
You know how you can tell your computer's upgraded is because we can see the red lights on your tower on the side there.
That was always there. You can't see the green one. Yeah. But yeah, it's this is just so in character for Microsoft that I'm not surprised. Like as I said in the intro, my full sympathies to everybody who relies on Microsoft 365 and associated products like Microsoft Teams to work from home. But I'm also like, no, you should not be surprised that this would have happened to you.
Yeah. Look, if you're relying entirely on Microsoft Teams, that in itself is a poor idea.
Yeah.
It was, and again, you said it exactly when you segued this. Microsoft and Windows don't release complete products.
No, not
Microsoft
anymore.
Teams was released to immediately compete with Zoom.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a good product.
No.
Now people are using it because Zoom had all the issues about China information. No.
Yeah, but I think also if you have the Microsoft Office Pro or whatever it's called, it comes bundled with it. So if you're a company and you've bought an enterprise license, it's just easier to use the software that you already have access to.
But yeah, like they you shouldn't be using it, if I'm perfectly honest. Like it's just a poor product. It's painful to work around with contacts, with creating meetings. You may as well be using, something completely free like Discord, honestly, or Skype. That's the other weird thing to me.
Yeah,
is
Skype.
That Skype works perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I genuinely have no issues with Skype.
Except for the ugly ass logo in the bottom right-hand corner.
Yeah, but it's weird because doesn't Microsoft own Skype?
Yes.
So why could they not just improve the product that already works well instead of releasing a new product which doesn't even have proper, software?
I think because Skype has like a kind of a bad name. Like there was a period of time when it was complete garbage. Like they bought Skype and then they had it for a bit and then they made it rubbish and then nobody used it. Yes. And I think that's the thing is they're trying to entice people back with something new. Like it's like Internet Explorer isn't called Internet Explorer anymore for a reason. It's now called Edge.
Well, Internet Explorer still exists, I think.
Not in like an official update capacity.
Okay.
Yeah. So
but yeah, like Skype, they actually even created rooms for Skype where like you could create a call room and then invite people to that.
Yeah.
Rather than calling someone directly and then adding people to that call.
Yeah. Which is just Zoom at this point.
Yeah. But and again, that works perfectly fine. I have had no issues with that. And then they've also added Microsoft Teams, which is like, why?
I think Teams is meant to be like an amalgamation of, I'm not actually used to it.
Obviously, it's supposed to work in cooperation with like everything else that's on Microsoft 365.
Yeah, and admittedly, I've never really used it before, but I think it's kind of meant to be like Slack, which is kind of think of it like the text channels in Discord, but for businesses.
Also, by the way, Discord, I can't believe people. Obviously, it feels like if you're using Discord, it's like it's for games, but Discord has so much better functionality than so many of these other.
I think. Because I have actually thought about this. I'm like, why haven't more people adopted Discord during this like social upheaval that is the pandemic? And I came to the conclusion of like, if you don't know what you're doing with Discord, it can be a bit daunting to learn. Right? There's all these different channels, and if you try to set up a Discord server, like, people don't want to do a Google search.
Well, I mean, it doesn't. Maybe if you were in the beginning of Discord, it would have been difficult. But now it's even more, designed to make it easier for people to use. And that's what happens when you have that's what happens when you have a product that's made for one thing and then they're also making it like usable in other areas.
Yeah.
Is that you'll have now if you try and create a server, it tells you, are you trying to make a community server or are you trying to make a personal gaming server or something like that?
Yeah.
And then once you create the server, it's like, here's how you can improve it by inviting people, giving them roles. It guides you through a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess, it's mainly, I think that Discord is associated with games.
Yep.
Or gamers in particular.
Yeah.
And so it has more of a, unofficial feel to it.
Are you saying gamers are oppressed?
Yes, gamers rise up. Gamers rise up. But yeah, like if you Microsoft Teams is just American Zoom, and it's more of America taking the same information you're already worried about Zoom taking. So just use whichever is more reliable, even if that's a different one altogether.
Yeah, and just you even like use the one that's used the most as well, because then you won't be that person that goes, or can you download this specific piece of software so I can talk to you one time?
My goodness, the number of like a friend of mine, because I've been teaching Japanese to quite a few people, so I was initially going to suggest we use a certain app, and then like that friend came up and said, look, I wouldn't mind, but I've already got, and she just pulled out a phone and showed me like there's Zoom, there's Skype, and then there's like ShareX, and there's WebEx, sorry, and then there's Microsoft Teams. And she had all of those in her phone. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, I understand. It's okay. We won't be using a different one. We'll just use Zoom.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And I'm all for competition, but like it is getting to the point where it's getting difficult.
Yeah. Look, we get free Zoom Premium from uni. So I've just been using that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have to really worry about it. Like my company uses Zoom for meetings. And then we just use Slack for everything else.
Nice. Yeah.
So it's nice and easy, thank God. But I feel for those people who, it becomes much more complicated, for people like, oh, I don't want to use that. I don't want to download it. Like, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, I think that's about it. Like Microsoft is just, I don't know. I feel like they sort of peaked in the Windows 7 days, and it's just been downhill since then.
I will say this though, I feel like Microsoft is a thing where it works perfectly for you until it doesn't, and then it like never works, and then you'll feel like it's never working properly for you. For me, in regards to like Windows, I've never had any issues.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, as I said before, I never had any issues on my old computer. But for whatever reason now, it's just like, how about I don't let you get to this intermediary menu and I'll just automatically close. But you can open up like the first menu and like the sub menu of the advanced menu. But as soon as you go to open up the advanced, I can't do that for you anymore. And it's like, it's just all that sort of stuff as well. Like, it's just, I don't know what the hell's happened. And I feel like I never, ever had any issues with Windows prior. Like Windows 7 was the pinnacle.
Very user-friendly, just simple, concise.
I don't know anybody who had serious problems with that piece of software.
No. And then, you know what? Here's the other thing. What is with Windows' naming, like Microsoft's naming capabilities? Like with PlayStation, with Sony, PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, 3, 4, 5 now. Xbox? Nah, man. Xbox, and then Xbox 360, and then Xbox One, and then Xbox Series X, and then same with Windows. It's Windows 98, Windows Vista, Windows XP, Windows Vista, and then Windows 7.
What? Yeah. Windows, it went, I'm trying to remember, it went Windows, there was like 3.1 at some point, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But there was like 95 and 98, XP, 2000.
That was 2003, wasn't it? as well?
No, it's just XP 2000 XP.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Windows 7, Vista 8, 8.1, and then 10. And I think they're just going to do Mac with this now, I reckon, because like Mac, like they just use OS X 10.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just like iterations of that. They just keep improving. And I think Windows is going to do the same thing rather than releasing completely different versions of the software.
Yeah. Just call it Windows 10.1.
Yeah, which would probably make sense. They would just call it by the update now, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
but there's no cool name like Snow Leopard or anything like that. But yeah, Microsoft bad.
Sometimes.
Microsoft bad sometimes. Now, we're going to talk about a topic that we talked about quite extensively over a past couple of episodes. I think it was like the first and the second episode. I think we talked about this quite a lot, which is the whole media v Google thing.
Yes.
So just a bit of a catch up. Media companies, not only in Australia, as it would turn out, are mad with Google because they say that they've been taking advertising dollars away from them, but Google uses their news to generate the money for themselves.
Yeah.
So here in Australia, Nine Entertainment said that ad revenue is worth 600 million Australian dollars a year, and then News Corp said it was worth $1 billion a year. So wildly different valuations. So, which brings us into the fact that Google is putting together a new, I guess, campaign or service, and they're committing $1 billion to this new service, which is like a curated Google News. So apparently, how it will work is, if you're an editor at a company and you're partnered with Google in this, you have some editorial decisions to make about what content will be pushed. From what we can tell, there's not really a whole heap of details at the moment. But I think the main thing for me is the fact that they're going to give out $1 billion worldwide when two of the biggest media organizations in Australia, which only services roughly 25 million people, have either said, we want over half of this or all of this.
Yeah.
Like just for here, not in some of the bigger countries, like in America, 350 million, was another one, Germany. I'm pretty sure there's 60 million people there. Like here is small. And these, like our biggest media organizations are saying it's 600 million, $1 billion, respectively. But I think this is, now I would like to think this is a positive step from Google, but I can't also help but feel like this may be a way to get people ensnared and trapped within the Google ecosystem even more, and you won't be able to live without us.
So I think there's two parts of this to talk about. Number one is like what this will do for the actual publications.
Yeah.
And then the other part of it is what it means for like news from Google coming from here on out.
Yeah.
So getting onto the like what it means for the publications in themselves, I'm wondering whether this is sort of like when Quibi or Mixer tried to get certain YouTubers or streamers, like Mixer paying massive amounts to Ninja and then paying even more to Ninja when he wants to leave. Because they're trying to say, okay, these news these publications have audiences, right? Like if I watch or read certain like articles from a certain source regularly, I'm probably not going to change sources. So then it's like trying to just capture a news reading audience.
Yeah.
And so like this is sort of a way for them to gather, like essentially get all of these creators under the, like similarly to how certain video hosting sites are trying to get certain creators under their wing.
Yeah.
This is Google trying to, get their creators or publications under their wing and, create a home base for them, just like how News Corp has a whole bunch of sites and like news sources under them.
Yeah.
So I guess to me, most of what Google is doing here seems positive. Especially because like investing 1.4 billion, if you it changes based on the currency you look at it in.
Yeah.
I saw 1.4 billion dollars, and if you like try and divvy that up between 200 publications, it comes to around $7 million per which
organization.
is per organization, which is a fair bit.
Yeah.
Especially since a lot of these organizations seem to be smaller groups, I feel like.
Yeah, I would say so. It seems from just knowing or having a quick look at the ones that are going to be in Australia, which is Crikey and the Saturday Paper. I don't know much about the Saturday Paper, but Crikey, I believe, has always been online. I don't think they've ever done physical media. Like, I mean, I'm not invested enough to care if I'm wrong on that, but I think that they are, and that's probably one of the thing that Google is going after is these smaller online-only publications that are looking for another way to push their, I guess, it's just a product really to more people. Especially when, like, if you Google News, like, not using Google News, but if you just go to Google and you Google News, you'll mainly see, like in this country, you'll mainly see like Sydney Morning Herald, the Herald Sun, the Age, the AFR, like just keeps going. And it's just from like either Nine Fairfax or Nine Entertainment, whatever they're called now, and News Corp. So it's the biggest ones are pushed to the top. So it will be interesting to see what happens, because this all, at least for here in Australia, the program, it all hinges on what the ACCC, like the media bargaining code, what that process will eventuate to, it may never happen here because of that reason. They might just be like, it's too difficult. Like Facebook just pulled out. They just went, nah, if this goes through, we're just not going to offer any news.
Yeah.
Which is probably a good thing, because people should stop spending time on Facebook in particular, in my opinion. Oh my God, that site. So, I mean, this is I find this story quite interesting, because it could really change the way people get their information. And if it has a bit more of a human element, that's the other thing, is a lot of these details are in the dark.
Yeah. We
so don't know
just
how
a lot of guesswork right now.
Yeah, like we don't know how the curation process works, like what the editor will be doing. Will they be choosing only these stories will be pushed, right? Or will they have like they will say, okay, these stories are really great for people between this age bracket, and they're typically interested in this thing, and then the Google algorithm will sort it all out and then push it to people. Because that's like Google's thing. If you're a consumer, like the biggest value and also the biggest scary thing about it is the fact that Google is so good at knowing who you are and what you'd want to read. Unless you're on YouTube, and then it's just filled with whatever the top media organizations in your country want you to look at. So I'm looking forward to this happening, not in the sense of I will be using this, but in the sense of I wonder what will happen. Will we see the big news organizations in Australia? And that's the other thing, like we've mentioned it before briefly, Australia has really bad media diversity when you've essentially got two companies in Australia run pretty much all the major publications. And even the fact that one of the major networks here in Australia, the television network, Nine, now bought Fairfax, like they merged together. So, and not even to mention like who owns the media companies here, like pretty much all the television stations are owned by people in the fossil fuel industry, right? And then now one of them owns one of the biggest network of papers as well. And then you got Rupert Murdoch as with News Corp, and we all know what he's into. So all these papers, so even though there may be dozens of different publications in the country, they're all really just pushing the same idea to different demographics depending on which one you're reading. So I think this may be a positive thing. I would like to think it's going to be a positive outcome from this. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. I'm hoping for the best, but I kind of expect the worst.
I mean, yeah, it feels like this is definitely a chance for Google to start pushing an agenda, pushing their own agenda, in the sense that when you're sort of owned by Google, you don't really have an opportunity to say anything bad about Google. And so if Google is trying to raise up these platforms, these organizations, and make them sort of major, then, I mean, given how many people use Google on a regular basis for their news, it could very well lead to Google being able to just put out whatever they want to make themselves look good. Like how many people without any information, when just about zero information was provided in regards to the letter that they put out to everyone, when they provided just about zero information and made an article that was made to look like it was very much like Google was a complete loser in the situation and being attacked by Australian media.
Yeah,
like no one knew the facts of the situation, but it was very hard to look at Australian media in a good light as a result of that.
Yeah,
because Google was like very good at pushing that. But it's like so many people saw that. Like it was on Reddit ads, it was on Google when you went to Google in general. Given like Google's ability to just very easily push an agenda, like push a belief like that, it could very well lead to Google. I don't know what it would lead to after that if Google is able to push an opinion. But like it doesn't sound good either way.
Yeah, but you do raise a good point that if this is the lifeblood of these smaller publications, do end up with an effect like we have with the current media landscape here. Like even papers like The Guardian, who here in Australia, I guess you would describe them as the center left, as far as news organizations go, because like they're so it's like the chillest one typically is like center right, and then like they keep going further and further right as you go down the chain. But even they are beholden to banks. So there was that whole like Royal Commission or corruption hearing about the banks here. And The Guardian published something about it, but it was so lackluster and it seemed so lacking in detail, simply because they need those advertising dollars from the big four banks.
You can't run without them.
They're beholden to them, and they can't work without it. And that's one of the major issues.
I do kind of wonder, like, what Google can actually push with that. Like, obviously, in regards to the like mining companies and banks, it hurts them real hard when someone writes something negative about them. Yeah. But like, I'm kind of wondering, what can Google do that they would need these organizations to write to like twist for them in a positive light? Maybe they have something sinister planned. I don't know. But no, the other part of it is obviously that with like the App Store, for example, or the Google Play Store, we've seen that they have a verification system. So like when an app comes in, they can look through it. They can make sure that it's clean and it's usable and it's, not just a malware or something like that.
Yeah.
So this might also be that Google is just trying to be like trying to do on a small scale what they already do on YouTube. But YouTube obviously, like the numbers that they release always feel insane, right? It's like 500 hours of video released every minute.
Yeah.
And like, at least if they only have to do that with 200 organizations, it'll be a lot less. It'll be a lot easier for them to sort of fact check and make sure that these publications that they're working with are doing everything the right way.
Yeah. And they do say that the idea behind this is to push quality journalism.
Yeah.
For whatever that means now, I feel like the topic of journalism is so... It's becoming such like a dividing thing because so many people have different opinions on it, and polar opposite opinions too.
And there's very few people providing facts, just facts.
Yeah, and what one person may see as unbiased, another person go, well, that's no good because it doesn't look good for my team.
Yeah.
And then the person who thought the original article was good doesn't like the other one that comes out because it's not supporting their team, and it's just like the whole thing is a mess. The whole thing,
and it's so hard to tell even what is unbiased because it could just be that something is black and white. Like, okay, what this person is doing is bad, what this person is doing is good. But you honestly cannot tell if that's coming with bias or not.
Yeah. And the other thing is that that wouldn't sell either anymore. Like, news has become like less about fact and more about entertainment, in my opinion.
Well, news itself stands for like what? Noteworthy entertainment worldwide and sports, I think.
I thought it was Northeast, West, and South.
But yeah, look, I don't know what's going to come of this. And obviously, very similarly to when the open letter from Google came out as well, there's a lot that they've left in the dark, and it's obviously intentional. But it just means that there's a lot to wait and see for. This has been a saga that we sort of started our podcast around the same time as. So it was really good that basically every episode of our podcast so far is like a running follower of the story. So if in the future someone wants to go back and learn how the Google news domination began, they can just go back through the first 6 episodes of this.
Yeah. I just want to quickly say is that this program is obviously going to grow as well, right? Because they list not insignificant amount of countries that will first be participating within the program, but they tend to grow. I'll leave that in. So the other thing is like, how far will this $1 billion stretch? Is this just for this year? Will there be more funding later on? It would have to be, I'd imagine. Is all this $1 billion going to the news organizations, or is it going to the back end as well? Like, how much? What's the breakdown? We don't really know. As you said, there's so much left in the air currently, which is probably on purpose.
Yeah. Again, same with the letter. They do this all we've seen Google do this literally like 5 weeks ago. So it's very much intentional that they don't give out too much information on this.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, I don't know what it is Google can do that they'll need information pushed in their own way. Maybe if they release something that tracks your information, that they'll need these publications to say, no, it's okay. It's not actually as bad as you think, but it is.
Yeah. I don't know if it will matter if Google gets bad press. You know what I mean? Because like they're part of like everyday life. They've even made it into the language. Like just like, Google it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel that like a lot of other tech giants like Microsoft and Apple and now even Zoom, we're sort of, they're like here to stay essentially. Like I think these ones will be the ones that we see like 100 years later will still be around in some capacity. So I don't know if it really matters that Google gets all this bad publicity. I reckon they'll still survive.
Yeah, I mean, they're no small indie company like they tried to push themselves as.
Yeah.
They'll be fine regardless. But yeah,
they're here to stay, and like even if they don't do the news now, they're probably going to get so big that they will end up doing the news, and you'll just have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shall we move on then?
Yeah, I think that's about it for that.
Not
one,
really a
isn't
segue
it, really?
for this one.
No, there's not. So yeah, Prad's Epic Gamer Talk. So we're trying something a little bit different this week, and we're going to do non-time sensitive discussion. I think is probably the best way to put it. Yeah. So do you want to introduce it?
Yeah, so obviously, and this is a major result of the pandemic right now. Everyone is at home. Everyone is feeling a bit alone, so to say. And so I feel like, and this is majorly a feeling thing, but it's also just what I've seen from a lot of streamers and a lot of people playing games right now, is that you don't. Games right now do not need to be graphically intense, do not need to be AAA to be the massive successes that we've seen. And the most clear examples I've seen of this, obviously, and you obviously for sure, you do not need amazing graphics to make a good game. But like some of the more recent games are like taking that example as far as you can with games like Among Us, Fall Guys, even Valorant. League of Legends has been around for a long time, so I'm not going to include that. But and like even the copies of Among Us, something like SCP that's just come out recently, I think. A lot of these have like very very low graphics, but that's not the point of it. It's more like what is the future of games from here on out? Because we've seen the success that a lot of these games have, where people aren't playing as much individual games anymore. Like obviously massive titles like Witcher, Spider-Man, Red Dead Redemption 2, all of these do come out and they are successful. But the level of success that something like Fortnite has seen, where it's a free game, but there are in-game purchases, but you like it's got a very clear design, have reached a level of success that none of these other games have. And you like the one comparison I come down to is Fortnite versus PUBG, where PUBG it doesn't focus on graphics per se. Obviously, that's not the case, but it has a look to it that it tries to hold, which is more realism compared to something like Fortnite.
Yeah.
And yet Fortnite, due to its light coloredness, its rapid paced gameplay, and I mean, those two things made it a much bigger success than anything else in the past, maybe 10 years or so.
Yeah.
And I guess I just slightly come to wonder whether like we'll see the next few years, will we see games more focused towards rapid gameplay and I guess multiplayer functionality compared to focus on story and game in the such, because we've seen that in recent years as well. Like back in the day, I think Modern Warfare 2, massive game, still considered one of the best Call of Duty games. It had a I'm quite sure I remember this correctly. The story was still very nice to play through.
Yeah,
but it also had a very nice multiplayer.
Yeah.
So that was probably one of the last few. But then nowadays, these games like Battlefield and even more like the Call of Duty games, entirely multiplayer based. And like everyone's going for these the battle royale systems as well. I believe even I think Halo was at some point considered to have something like. I mean, obviously we've got like Slayer and all of that exists, but it's just so much slower than anything else compared to Fortnite or something.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering whether, like the focus of games will change from, single player gameplay to entirely focus on what people get to do as a group.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just going to be wherever the money is.
Yeah.
Really. Like when you think about it, like if you have a single player game, to create new content for that, you got to pump heaps of money into it.
Yeah.
Right? You got to make an extension. You got to pay, if your game's been voice acted, you have to pay for voice actors and so on and so forth. But if you have a multiplayer game, it's very easy to charge somebody $10 for a map pack. Right? And then like even this subscription model, essentially, what do they call it? A game
Battle
pass.
Yeah, Game Pass. Yeah,
Game Pass, Battle Pass, whatever it may be. That's just another way to suck more money out of the consumer.
Yeah.
So I think that what we will see is a lot more studios focused on making sure they have a big multiplayer success, right? Because as we've seen with Among Us, and we've seen with countless games before it, is that it is the current hype game. And with this sort of stuff, especially like if you're younger, you want to play with your friends. And you have a greater sense of, it's kind of like peer pressure without anybody doing anything to you.
Yeah, yeah.
To fit into play as well. So I think that's another huge reason why games like Among Us just simply, who knows? It'd be interesting to see if it was like some streamer on Twitch who started all of this, right? Like they played it with their friends and then other people on Twitch started playing because they thought it was interesting. The audience from both started playing and it spread out from there. I'm quite sure that may have just happened like that.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I can't remember his name.
It
was exactly that. A streamer. What's his name? Here we go. Yeah. Soda Poppin.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he was just playing with his friends and then suddenly, some members like this guy's Toast were like, oh, dude, just let's play this game. And then it's massive. He's now trending on YouTube every day. Yeah, so like these games don't really, and it's not just this one though. Like Among Us it's fun if you're the imposter, and a lot of people have said this. It's very much fun if you're the imposter, but if you're not playing as a crewmate at a high level, almost, it's very boring. And so like, I guess gameplay wise, it's nothing impressive. It's basically a game that we've seen for ages, right? Like when people get together, and before this pandemic, when people got together, one of the most common games to play is Mafia. So this game is basically that, but but made for a pandemic.
Yeah. I mean, that sort of speaks to the point that I was making. Is just like it's the hype game, so everybody wants to play it. Like, you're even just going to buy it. Like, I've bought it. I've not played it yet. Yeah. But I do intend to have a look at it at some point. But I do think that this is... Game publishers, obvious. Like, games are so expensive to create, especially if we're talking like AAA games, right? Thousands of hours been put into those games, right? To even get to a point where it's not even finished and then they release it anyway.
Yeah. Which is why, by the way, I'm really glad that Halo Infinite got delayed.
Yeah. Man, some of those screenshots didn't look next gen at all.
No. It's a very quick tangent, but I will say those reports were because to get that build of the game, which is something that you do very commonly, it was an older version so that it would run without any bugs.
Okay, right. Yeah. All right. Well, that's good because people were worried for a bit.
Yeah, but pandemic as well makes it a bit harder. But I think the big thing is that like a lot of these games, they have a very simple mechanic, right? Like, if, for example, Fortnite, you stay alive till the last person there, you build, you shoot people. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Among Us. You play with your friends, you figure out who the killer is, you're done. The major thing is the cosmetic side of it.
Yeah.
Where in, for example, most recently there's one called Genshin Impact that's come out, which is a mobile game that's playable on PC.
Yeah.
Kind of like Raid Shadow Legends, and it's entire like you can play the game. You can definitely play the game without any in-game purchases, but like the cosmetic upgrades are so worth the like money that you put into it that it's just like, why not put an extra $2, roll, and then try to get a good thing where you can just keep on paying money and keep on rolling. And I think the best example of how this can be like the best example of how you can do a game that has cosmetic purchases, but you don't need to pay money for them, is Warframe. And I think Warframe is a game that I was talking to my friend about it the other day, was that like it's the perfect example of a game where if you want to get stuff without paying money, it is 100% possible. It's just how much time you put into the game regardless. Because a friend of mine has accumulated essentially in-game like paid credits are called platinum. That's the stuff you use to get the skins and stuff. And you can easily get platinum by even without putting any money into the game, just by playing the game, getting certain items, and then selling those items on the stock market, essentially. And then once you sell those, you get platinum. You can save platinum to buy more expensive, like the skins and stuff. So you can literally play the game for free and get all of that expensive stuff, all of that stuff that typically costs money.
Yeah. This that sort of reminds me of the Diablo 3 auction house. The ill-fated Diablo 3 auction house. Now, I don't know too much about it, but I know people were rorting it. And then Blizzard decided to kill it, which is fair enough.
It does, obviously, like Warframe, again, I'm not going to say it's a niche game. It's a very charming game. It's a very satisfying game. But it doesn't have the same player base as certain other games. And the reason for that is because, yes, it becomes very grindy to try and do that. And it depends on, how much time you want to put into the game.
Yeah, I feel like Warframe was sort of hypey.
I'm not going to say it was
years ago.
I'm not going to say it got any hype.
I think there was definitely more buzz about it a few years ago than now.
So a couple of years ago, they became massive because they started advertising on PlayStation.
Yeah.
And it was a free game that had like pretty damn good graphics and a lot of gameplay to it.
Yeah.
And obviously, like the cosmetic upgrades, like they're really nice. But again, and they don't really advertise the fact that you can get them without paying money.
Yeah.
But I guess it's just like, even without the cosmetic upgrades, your characters look dope.
Yeah.
And it's like a simple design. Like, again, even in Warframe, you can play the game without requiring sorry, I've lost my train of thought, but you can play the game without getting too much into the mechanical side of it and still have a lot of fun. And I guess games with more simple mechanics that seem to be becoming more popular.
Yeah, I remember when I was in Japan and everybody bought a Switch, essentially. Warframe was on the Switch, and it was very impressive that it was free. The fact that there was so much to do,
yes,
and you didn't have to pay anything for it was pretty damn cool.
Because Warframe has a thing where they release everything on the most basic level. Like, you can get literally any. There's a part of the game where you literally have wings. You can literally fly.
Yeah.
And that, like, they give you the most basic version of that for free. They give you a hoverboard for free, the basic version. After that, you can grind and make it better.
Yeah.
But you can get the basic version of anything without paying any money.
Yeah.
Which is again. I'll just say that again. Warframe is probably the best example of how you can balance cosmetics, grinding, and all of that together.
I was going to say that because I quite like World of Tanks. I think like it's kind of a cool game when you get all the little tanks and you have a battle.
Yeah.
But if you're not paying to win, you've lost. Like it sucks. Like you're in this tiny little tank from like the 50s or whatever, and then you've got this huge like bloody destroyer tank coming through and just annihilate you. You've got no chance, and you can't do any damage against it. It sucks. Which it's just a shame. It's a potentially good game, but because it's so pay to win, it's no fun, And to get to the point, at least when I was playing it, to get to the point where you could like be competitive, you'd be spending more than a game you'd bought at EB Games or whatever.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I don't want to spend like $50, $80 to be competitive.
Yeah.
For a game that's free. Like I may have considered spending 20.
And I'm kind of wondering whether that's more focused on games that come from mobile games, essentially.
Yeah.
Where like obviously even like in with the game that's popular right now, Genshin Impact. I have friends who I thought was obviously they are responsible. They are very responsible with their money, but like I never expected them to put money into a mobile game.
Yeah.
And yet like they like it's those spinning ones where you just like you're like it's almost gambling to that point where you put in money, you spin the thing and maybe you get a good one.
Yeah.
And it's a system where there's a thing where like if you buy 10 of them, then at least one of them is going to be 4 stars or higher. So, you may as well pay the maximum amount and get as much as you can out of it.
Yeah.
And that like that is definitely there's definitely the opportunity for pay to win there because you can get something more powerful by spending money.
Yeah.
So like mobile games I feel are very, very much
steeped in microtransactions.
Yeah. And I feel like because there's so much money there, a lot of PC games now as well have been focused on getting as much out of that as they can as well.
Yeah. See Star Wars Battlefront loot crates as an example.
I guess rather than pay to win, it's like pay to, feel good about playing the game. I don't know.
Yeah. Pay to actually enjoy the experience.
Yeah.
Which is what you don't want. That is terrible. Like, especially if you've already paid $80 or whatever it was to get the game, and then to be like, to actually enjoy, you need to spend another $50.
And I guess like that's a big thing if you pay $80 and then you have to pay to win. I'm talking about your NBA 2K. Then you're a terrible game. At the very least, if your game is free, then I guess it's kind of more acceptable.
Yeah, it really just comes down to, as one of the themes of this podcast is like, if you look after the consumer will look after you.
Yeah.
Just be like pro-consumer companies, it would seem, always end up at a better position than those that aren't. So yeah, like going back to the original thing though, I do feel like it's just all where the money is, right?
Yeah.
That they'll keep doing. So there will be companies that exclusively do AAA, like extremely immersive RPGs, like CG Project Red, right?
Yeah.
Like very much looking forward to Cyberpunk, the new massive game. And they'll probably all they'll do. And that's cool. Like you can have those they can have those like niche studios, right?
Yeah.
And they'll make a good whack of money from that because people will see that brand and associate it with a quality RPG, right?
Yeah.
Like this is just all what will happen is that you'll get companies that will exclusively do multiplayer indie experiences, right? And like there's been hype indie games before, like Shovel Knight being a great example, and going even further back, Super Meat Boy. I remember back in the day, everybody was playing Super Meat Boy. So like I don't think like this is a new revelation by any means. I think we're just it's just more prevalent than it was before.
I think that comes with the normalization of gaming as well.
That's the other thing is like, how many more people are alive now compared to 2008?
How many more people feel okay playing games than 2008?
Yeah, and not to mention everybody's stuck inside.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably why Among Us in particular has become popular. But I wonder if we still would have seen this kind of growth for something like Genshin Impact.
Yeah. I would say there's probably a lot of money behind Genshin Impact. It seems like a lot has gone into it. It looks really pretty. I just briefly looked at something last night. So
my friend was showing me just some of the heights. Like it surprises you how like wide the game is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's got a lot of gameplay issues. My friend was like, hey, do you want to try this game? And then he also like listed all of the issues with the game. Like again, if you're looking for a story, this is not where you want to be.
Yeah.
And I guess for me, those kind of games just don't seem very interesting. Like I want some sort of progression, some sort of growth, rather than just play the game to get stronger and then keep playing to get stronger than that.
Yeah. I feel like this is just going to be the way that it keeps going as well. Like you're just going to see more and more of this sort of thing because it makes money, and that's all like a lot of game companies are. They're not, not all of them are small indie studios that do it for the love of creating games, right? They're mainly in it to make a whole heap of money. And yeah, it just will be the way that things are. It's just like with movies and stuff. Like I reckon there'll become a time when we just forget about cinema releases.
Oh yeah.
Because that's a lot of money.
Because like we saw how Disney managed to release like, oh yeah, you can have Disney Plus, but then you need to pay for Disney Plus Premium to watch this movie upon release.
Yeah.
It's
I think we'll move away from all that sort of stuff. And the other thing, like, when we were talking about yesterday, I was saying that the reason why a lot of indie games are becoming more prevalent is simply because of the democratization of distribution and publishing, right? It's way easier to publish a video game now because you have things like Steam, that Steam project where you can put up your game and people play it as like an open beta. I forget what it's called. Steam Greenlight? I can't remember. But I feel like it's just with the internet, you open it up to those sorts of things that it would have been much harder for an indie studio to reach so many people. I feel like the first indie game, at least on my radar, that did any big numbers was Fruit Ninja.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, that mobile game.
Yeah.
And that would have never stood a chance in a game in a world of just retailers. You walk into EB Games or JB Hi-Fi or whatever your equivalent of those stores are, and you would just pick out what was on the shelf. Now, right, you've got everything under the sun. Like games, like even more complicated games like BeamNG, they would have never been a thing. Among Us would have been much smaller. It probably would have been only perhaps mobile only. Who knows?
Or it would have stayed exactly the small game it was.
Yeah, it could have just been one of those sleeper titles on like Xbox Arcade or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think so. What I'm saying, I don't think like what we're seeing is new. And I think what we will see is we'll see more of these games, but I don't think we'll see the end of story-driven games at all, right? Because there's still obviously a market for big AAA games, right? And I feel like there will continue to be. And even story-driven games that aren't AAA. Like I played a good one a while ago called Helix, or Elix rather. And, that was a good game. Graphics weren't great, but I had a lot of fun playing it. It was a bit cheesy, but yeah, I mean, they're known for that particular studio. Piranha Bytes is known for that. So, you get what you get, and we'll just see more of it.
All right. Well, that brings us right about to the end of the episode, I think.
Yeah, I think so. So guys, if you like the episode, make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and leave a comment. Let us know if you like the more non-time sensitive discussion on the podcast, because it does save us when it's been a bit of a slow news week.
Guys, come on, step up your work, please.
Yeah, hey, please. If you're into following things on Instagram, maybe follow the show and us on Instagram. All links obviously will be in the description of the YouTube video as per usual. Any final words?
Well, did you know that there's a town in Austria called Fucking?
Yes.
Yes.
I did, because it was on Top Gear. And on that bombshell, stay safe.
Bye-bye.